everyone, my name is Christof. Welcome to this introduction to Schema Therapy. So today I would like to talk about basic needs and maladaptive schemas and coping strategies and the schema modes. So it's a short introduction, and I hope to help you to understand what are the basic theoretical concepts within Schema Therapy. If you would like to see more detail about my home and my contact data, please stop the video here. Or if you're interested in my qualification, have a look here. Or if you're interested in my work experience, you might have a gaze on this slide. So let's start. What is Schema Therapy? Schema Therapy is understood, at least in our understanding, as an enhancement and further development of cognitive behavioral therapy. And it is like an integrative approach, so it is combining psychodynamic, hypnotherapeutic and gestalt therapeutic concepts into the CBT approach. So here's the architecture of Schema Therapy. So we have the fundament as a very special client therapeutic relationship. I will talk about in another track. So what I would like to show you is here are the four main pillars, the main concepts, which gives the whole Schema Therapy its own face or its own identity. So we talk about, for example, about basic needs. What does that mean when we talk about basic needs? So the question is, what do we all need? What are very human, and what is every human being asking for? And everyone needs actually safety and health. So what does that mean? We all have a deep-rooted need that we feel secure, that people are protecting us, and that we have something to eat and we can sleep and we have some shelter and so on. So a typical expression would be, I wish to be protected from danger, as you can see here on this slide. So this is a very central need, and it's actually like an existential or physiological need. But we also have other needs which we would call emotional or core needs or psychological needs. And here, first of all, I like to mention the need for attachment. What does that mean? It means a stable and loving relationship to other members of my community, of my network. So everyone wishes people who support them in an emotional sense. So another very important need is autonomy. Autonomy means independence from others, so self-determination. So I want to be an active part of my life and don't want to be passive. So I wish to be able to determine, at least in parts, what I'm going to do, so that I'm not just a marionette of someone else, a passive being. No, I want to be active in my life. So what else do we have for needs? Here, the self-worth need. It's a kind of appraisal, or where we just need some applause or some respect also towards ourselves, that we also have respect to ourselves. And everyone needs some moments where he can enjoy and have fun, and where he has pleasure and the freedom to show emotions, real emotions. And this is what we call where we can be spontaneous. We also have an overarching need for structure and limit setting. It's a mixed group of certain aspects, but here we have pointed out the need for structure and actually also limit setting, because it gives us security when we know what our rights are and what are the duties of others and so on, that we have clarity, that we know how life is working and what kind of right rights do we have, for example, in the society we live in? So altogether it gives us some security. When we show them together, this is a very important slide for us, where we try to understand always what is actually the need behind the symptom. So when we deal with clients, we ask ourselves and the client, if he's open for that, what is actually the central issue behind the symptom. And these are our proposals. What might it be? What could be the real issue that you show certain behavior which you maybe do not like or which does harm you? Altogether, we have in the beginning, very in the beginning actually, the idea that we also psychoeducate our client in what all human beings need in order to invite them to think about themselves. So here on the right side is a sheet of paper where you can read that or explain that to the client and have some structure. Okay, so the next pillar or the next concept is that of the EMS, or the early maladaptive schemas. What does that mean? Early maladaptive schema is defined by Jeffrey Young as broad, pervasive themes regarding oneself and one's relationship with others. That schema is developed during childhood and elaborated throughout one's lifetime and dysfunctional to a significant degree. And we conceptualize that as a conglomeration of memories, of cognitions, emotions, and body sensations. So it's a package which belongs together and pops up here and there. And when we come in a certain situation that is difficult for us, then the schema might be activated. Now let's try to get an image by sketching a figure which might indicate how our thinking is. So we all have certain needs, and when the needs are met, more or less balanced in our childhood, then we have good chances to build up positive schemas. We will talk about that later. But life is sometimes not fair, and sometimes people are missing really important issues. They are missing they have a lack of needs, that they are not fulfilled, and what they build up is certain emotional buttons, like a pain point or a sore spot where certain situations hit on this wound, so to speak, and activate certain emotions and body sensations or memory and cognitions. And the client or the human being is actually looking on the world through certain glasses which are connected to these schemas. I give you an example. So let's say we have a client who has a deep-rooted feeling of I'm embarrassing. So we would say he is wearing glasses like I'm embarrassing glasses, and he looks on the world through his glasses and everything is red because the glasses are giving them a red impression. Now, when we are able to take off the glasses, we see much more information behind them. So the feeling of I'm embarrassed is not always there. I have many moments. There are many moments where I have reason enough to be proud of myself. But I can only recognize and see that when people get rid of the glasses so that they can see what's actually the world like and where are my highlights or my stars actually. So coming back to our sketch, here we have these glasses which are activated by certain situations which trigger my emotional moods. Let me say some words about coping styles. So the basic needs and the emotional model schemas are actually invisible facets of myself, so I cannot see them. They are deep inside. What I can see is how I cope with my schemas and my needs. And this is conceptualized within the coping styles concept. So we have more or less 3 groups of coping styles that are surrender, avoidance, and overcompensation. And a typical behavior for surrender would be I give in, or I just give up, give in, give up, and I cannot do anything, and I accept what's going on outside, that my schema, for example, is triggered. Another way of dealing with an activated schema is I try to avoid certain situations, or I run away when I'm already in, or I overcompensate and I fight back or dominate the situation. And what kind of behavior I show depends on, of course, my needs and on my learning models. So my temperament plays a role, and my history, how I was reinforced, or my operant conditioning, also my learning history. And the coping styles actually have the problem that the emotional or the schemas get perpetuated. So that means they get more and more chronified, and the schema is getting stronger and stronger, and it's more and more difficult actually to find adaptive ways how to deal with the schemas. Last but not least, we are working with a mode model, and the mode model is very important when we work with children, teenagers, but also with adults actually, because it's very concrete. And we can define a mode as a moment-to-moment emotional state that can be triggered by day-to-day events, and where the client is oversensitive to, so where he has emotional buttons. So it has different facets, so it's like a schema, or very similar to a schema. We have emotions, we have cognitions, we have memory and body sensations. And also a tendency to do something or to respond in a motoric or in a behavioral way. So this is all connected to each other, and we cannot distinguish, and it's really difficult to get it separated, the cognition from the emotion, from the body response. So we regard them as intertwined and work with them all together. So what we do is usually we conceptualize them as our own figures within a bigger figure. As you can see here, for example, the child modes are the inner critic or punitive modes and dysfunctional mode. I will show you later how it works. So, in order to make the client understand what are schemas and modes and how they function, let me try to explain how is it working between the client and his caretaker or caregiver. So usually every client has different modes. We can work with them, and they have certain emotional buttons or schemas, and they are triggered in a difficult situation. So we find a certain dynamic and any kind of response. So this is often the dysfunctional behavior. So far, so good. Now the question is, what happens on the other side? So let's say where client is a teenager or is in contact with another person, and what is exactly on the side of teenagers, the teenager side good, let's say the dysfunctional behavior resolves for a short time the inner conflict on the mode level of the teenager, may cause on the other side to trigger a schema on the caregiver. So what is the dysfunctional behavior on one side might be a trigger on the other side. And here too we have different modes which get activated. We have a certain mode dynamic, and the caretaker is responding to the child or client. And then again it goes back, and what we call that is a typical mode clash, where people who live together, let's say a parent and a child, trigger each other and activate their modes which might cause an escalation of the situation. So, for example, what might be typical modes which are activated by the child? For example, or hopefully we have a lot of healthy adult or caring and guidance modes in the parent, and also a happy parent mode that describes actually the moments where the parent feels quite happy with the child and enjoys the time with him. But of course it might also happen that the child's dysfunctional behavior might hurt the parent, and the parent feels a vulnerable child and is also frustrated or angry. And depending on the parent, there might pop up some other demanding or punitive parent modes within the parent, which is directed inside or outside, outward, and we also often find detached protector modes or some self-soothing modes, or they are also overcompensating to the dysfunctional behavior of the child, or have some over-control or perfectionistic coping modes, actually, which might cause a lot of problems during the upbringing, day-to-day life. So let's try to summarize what can we see in the development of schemas. So usually we have an interaction of the temperament and the biography, and we are also facing certain risk and protective factors, of course, and they all together build up dysfunctional beliefs, maladaptive schemas, and unhelpful models of the learn for the child, and that more or less leads to a certain development of the child. But not only that, we also find some dysfunctional behavior in the generations before. So the parents have not invented any schemas, so they usually have had a certain childhood where their own needs were not met. And the parents itself, the grandparents itself, also had difficult times. So what we often find is a certain transgenerational pattern of schemas over the generations, and that is particularly important to help the parents to understand, why do I as a mother or father, certain patterns which block or which hinder me to give the child what it needs, actually. And that is the point when we talk about schema coaching for parents, which we come later to. So first of all, I'd like to thank you. We talked about basic needs, early maladaptive schemas, coping strategies, and the mode model. I hope I could give you a first impression of the theoretical foundation of schema therapy. Happy to see you again. Take care and bye-bye.